Have you ever stopped to think about why the ocean, with all that immensity of water, doesn't simply advance over the land and swallow everything? It seems like a silly question, but when you really stop to reflect on it, you realize it's something absolutely fascinating and even a little frightening. Think about it. The sea covers more than 70% of the planet. It's trillions and trillions of liters of water in constant motion, with gigantic waves, tides that rise and fall every single day, ocean currents that could drag entire continents if they wanted to. But even so, there's an invisible line that the water doesn't cross. It reaches that point, plays a little with the sand, waits your feet when you're on the beach, and then goes back. And this has been happening for millions of years, every day, without fail. But what really holds back this brutal mass of water? Is it just a coincidence? Or is there something much bigger, much more complex, and perfectly orchestrated, happening right under our noses that we don't even notice? The answer will leave you speechless, because it involves forces beyond our daily comprehension. A balance so delicate and perfect that if it were altered even slightly, life as we know it would simply cease to exist. So stay with me until the end of this video, because you're going to discover the secrets that nature hides about this invisible barrier between the sea and the land. And I guarantee that after knowing this, you'll never look at the ocean the same way again. The first thing you need to understand is that the sea is not a static entity, standing still and doing nothing. The ocean is alive, dynamic, constantly transforming, changing, expanding, and contracting. Tides are the most obvious example of this. Twice a day, every day, the sea level rises and falls on practically all the coasts of the planet. And this is not random. It is not a coincidence. It is a direct result of the gravitational force of the moon, and, to a lesser extent, the sun. The moon pulls the water of the oceans towards it as it orbits the Earth, creating a kind of bulge, an elevation on the ocean's surface that follows the lunar movement. On the opposite side of the planet, another bulge occurs because of the centrifugal force generated by the Earth's rotation. These two elevations create what we call high tide, while in the perpendicular areas, low tide occurs. This movement is so powerful that in some places in the world, such as the Bay of Fundy in Canada, the difference between high and low tide can reach an incredible 16 meters. 16 meters? That's the height of a 5-story building. Imagine the absurd amount of water that moves to create that difference. But here's the fascinating detail. Even with all that immense force pulling and pushing trillions of liters of water back and forth, the sea doesn't permanently invade the land. Why? Because there's a natural limit, a kind of boundary established by the planet's own geography and the laws of physics that govern our world. This limit is determined primarily by coastal topography, by the elevation of the land relative to sea level. The Earth is not flat. It has mountains, valleys, plains, and coastal areas vary dramatically in altitude. In some places like the Netherlands, parts of the country are below sea level and are only not flooded because of a complex system of dikes, dams, and pumps that keep the water out. In other places, such as the cliffs of Dova in England or the fjords of Norway, the land rises abruptly, creating gigantic natural barriers that the sea simply cannot overcome, no matter how strong the waves or how high the tide. But it's not just topography that keeps the ocean in place. There is a hydrostatic equilibrium at play, a concept in physics that states that fluids at rest exert equal pressure in all directions, and this pressure increases with depth. The ocean is constantly seeking a state of equilibrium, and this equilibrium is achieved when the water is distributed in such a way that gravitational pressure is uniform throughout its horizontal extent. This means that water will naturally flow from higher to lower areas until there is no longer a difference in altitude, creating a reasonably level surface that we call sea level. This surface is not perfectly flat because of various factors such as currents, temperature, salinity, and the Earth's rotation itself, but there is an average level that remains relatively constant over time. Now you might be thinking, but what about the storms, tsunamis, and gigantic waves we see in the news, destroying coastal cities? Don't these events show that the sea can indeed invade the land whenever it wants? And the answer is yes and no. Yes, these events show the destructive power of the ocean, and its ability to temporarily overcome the natural and human barriers we try to place in its path. Tsunamis, which are waves generated by underwater earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, or landslides on the ocean floor, can reach heights of more than 30 meters when they approach the coast and penetrate several kilometers inland, destroying everything in their path. Hurricanes and tropical cyclones can push enormous amounts of water above the normal coastline, creating what we call a storm surge, which can flood extensive coastal areas. Hurricane Katrina in 2005 created a storm surge of more than 8 meters in some areas of Mississippi, completely flooding cities and killing hundreds of people. But here's the crucial point. These are temporary, extreme events that last hours or at most days. And then the water recedes, returns to the ocean, because the natural balance is restored. Water always seeks its level, always returns to where gravity and topography determine it should be. The sea does not permanently occupy these areas that it temporarily invaded during the storm. It advances, causes destruction, and then recedes. And this happens precisely because of that balance we talked about before. But there's another absolutely crucial factor that keeps the ocean within its limits. The water cycle. You probably learned about it in school, but you may never have really stopped to think about the magnitude and importance of this process. Every day, the sun heats the surface of the oceans, causing water to evaporate and turn into vapor. This vapor rises into the atmosphere, condenses to form clouds, and eventually falls back down as rain, snow, or hail. Some of this precipitation falls directly back into the ocean, but a significant portion falls on land. This water that falls on the continents follows several paths. Some is absorbed by the soil and plants, some evaporates back into the atmosphere, and some runs off the surface, forming rivers and streams that eventually flow back into the ocean. This cycle is absolutely gigantic in scale. It is estimated that approximately 500,000 cubic kilometers of water evaporate from the oceans every year. 500,000 cubic kilometers. It's such an absurdly large number that we can't even visualize it properly. But the point is, the ocean is constantly losing water to the atmosphere through evaporation, and at the same time receiving water back through rain and rivers. There is a dynamic equilibrium happening all the time. If the ocean only received water from rivers without evaporating anything, it would eventually overflow and flood the continents. If it only evaporated without receiving anything back, it would dry up completely. But neither one thing nor the other happens because the system is in perfect equilibrium, an equilibrium that has been maintained for millions of years. And here's something many people don't know. Sea level isn't fixed over geological time. It changes, and it changes dramatically. During ice ages, when enormous amounts of water are trapped as ice in polar ice caps and continental glaciers, sea level drops significantly. In the last ice age, which ended about 12,000 years ago, sea level was approximately 120 meters lower than it is today. 120 meters. Areas that are now submerged were dry land. You could walk from Asia to North America across what is now the Bering Strait. England was connected to the European continent by land. Large stretches of what is now the continental shelf were coastal plains inhabited by animals and primitive humans. And when the climate warmed and these glaciers melted, all that water returned to the ocean, and sea level gradually rose to where it is today. This process hasn't stopped. We are still in a relatively warm interglacial period, and with current global warming caused by human activity, sea levels are rising again. Not as fast as they rose at the end of the last ice age, but they are rising, approximately 3 millimeters per year in recent decades, and the rate is accelerating. This increase may seem insignificant, but over decades and centuries, it represents a real threat to coastal cities and low-lying island nations. So when we ask why the sea doesn't invade the land, the most honest answer is, it doesn't invade permanently because there is a dynamic balance between several factors, including gravity, topography, the water cycle, and the total amount of water on the planet. But this balance is not immutable. It changes over timescales too long for us to perceive in our daily lives. But those change. And we are living in a time when this balance is being disturbed by human actions. The accelerated melting of the Greenland and Antarctic ice sheets is adding extra water to the oceans. Thermal expansion, which is the increase in the volume of water as it heats up, is also contributing to rising sea levels. These two factors combined are gradually pushing that dividing line between sea and land upwards, causing the ocean to effectively advance over areas that were once dry land. Cities like Venice, Miami, Bangkok, Jakarta, and countless others are literally sinking or being increasingly flooded because of this sea advance. Small island nations like Tuvalu, Kiribati, and the Maldives are at real risk of disappearing completely beneath the waves in the coming decades if sea levels continue to rise at the current rate. But there's an even more fascinating and little-known side to this whole story. Sea level isn't uniform around the planet. It seems counterintuitive. After all, water is water and should be equally level everywhere, right? Wrong. Because of variations in gravitational force caused by the uneven distribution of mass within the Earth, the planet's rotation, ocean currents, and water temperature and salinity. Sea level can vary by up to 2 meters between different parts of the ocean. 2 meters of difference. There are literally mountains and valleys on the ocean's surface that you can't see with the naked eye because the changes are gradual and extend for thousands of kilometers. But they are there, and scientists can detect and measure them using super-precise satellites that constantly orbit the Earth, measuring the altitude of the ocean's surface with centimeter precision. These variations have enormous implications for ocean circulation, global climate, and, of course, the coastline. Areas with higher sea levels due to gravity are more prone to coastal flooding, while areas with lower levels have a greater safety margin. Another incredible thing, the polar ice caps themselves, because of the enormous mass of concentrated ice, exert a gravitational pull that draws ocean water towards them. This means that sea levels are actually higher near Greenland and Antarctica than they would be if that ice weren't there. But when that ice melts, it not only adds water to the ocean, raising the global level, but also removes that mass that was exerting gravitational attraction, causing the water to redistribute unevenly across the planet. The bizarre result is that when the Greenland ice sheet melts, sea levels don't rise uniformly everywhere. They actually fall near Greenland and rise more in distant places like South Asia and the Pacific. The physics involved is complex and counterintuitive, but scientists have super-precise models that predict exactly how this will happen. Now, let's return to the original question with all this information in mind. Why doesn't the sea invade the land? Because there is a perfect balance established by billions of years of planetary between the amount of water on the planet, the force of gravity, the topography of the continents, the water cycle between ocean, atmosphere, and land, and the orbital and rotational movements of the Earth. This balance is so delicate and at the same time so robust that it allows life to exist, civilizations to establish themselves in coastal areas, and we can predict with reasonable accuracy where the water will be tomorrow, next week, next year. But this balance is not guaranteed forever. It can be disturbed. It is being disturbed, and the consequences of breaking this balance are potentially catastrophic for millions or even billions of people who live near the coast. The invisible barrier between sea and land is not a solid wall. It is a fluid line determined by complex natural forces, and this line is moving, slowly but inexorably, towards the continents. So, the next time you're at the beach, gazing at the endless ocean horizon, remember all of this? Remember that all that water is being held back by forces you can't see, but that are always present, working tirelessly to maintain balance. Remember that Earth is an integrated system where everything is connected, where a change in one place can have cascading effects across the entire planet. And remember that we, as a species, now have the power to influence this balance in ways our ancestors could never have imagined. And with this power comes immense responsibility. If you found this explanation as fascinating as I do, I want you to do 3 things for me right now. First, leave a like to show that you value quality educational content that makes you think differently about the world around you. Second, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell because there's much more incredible content about science, nature, and the mysteries of our planet coming every week, and you won't want to miss any of it. And third, go to the comments and tell me, had you ever stopped to think about this before? Or was it a total revelation for you? Which part of this explanation impressed you the most? And if you know someone who loves the beach but has never wondered why the sea doesn't invade everything, share this video with them, because good knowledge is shared knowledge. And to continue this journey of discovery with me, click on that video that's appearing on your screen right now, because there I reveal more curiosities that will blow your mind and completely change the way you see things around you. So don't waste time and click now to continue discovering incredible secrets of our planet with me.